Awesome, thank you. All right, let's see if I can pick the correct, nope, I have not picked the right screen. There we go. I'll try my second time. Are you able to see my presentation, or is it still me?
Nope, I am able to see your presentation.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, and happy Friday to everybody. I know you're all on mute, but I'm pretty sure I heard a few hollers and screams through the feedback. So thank you very much again, Chris Balow. Thank you for the introduction, Kathleen. Chris Balow, product manager, 15 years at Plex. I've had exposure to responsibilities in many different areas of the Plex software. I've been here for 15 years, 12 of those years in the actual implementation services and support area, and the last 3 years in product management. So you know, I do have a QA section here. All questions are fair game. I have a great memory. It's all short term. So I reserve the right to deflect any questions. So with that said, let's get going. Real quick on the agenda. You know, I'm going to do an update on some supply chain changes over the last year since we presented last year at this meeting. There was a couple requests to focus on, you know, what's specifically new for Honda. So I'm going to cover that. And there was also some requests that it was I brought up and spent a few minutes around when shipping to Honda, what are the best practices, just kind of a quick high level overview of you know, setup and how it should be done. And then last I had the QA portion of it, which if anybody's seen me at PowerPlex in the many years past, I have a great skill of being able to take my presentation right up to my time limit, so I never get to QA. But I will promise to try to keep some time today, and we might even have some further discussion around, you know, what people are doing, comments around what people are doing with regards to shipping to Honda and some of their best practices. So with that said, let's get going. First of all, with regard to Honda and updates, I want to put a quick plug out there so everybody knows there is within the community, there is actually a group, a space in the community specifically around Honda suppliers. So this is a great place to ask questions. And also, I want to welcome or encourage anybody that, you know, if you think that something's going very well for you as you're shipping to Honda, or you've discovered across anything new, or if any new requirements or situations come up with, share it in the community space there in the Honda suppliers user group. It's a great space. I know a lot of people are monitoring it and watching it, and it's a great collaboration tool to share ideas in between you know, this annual conference where we tend to talk a lot about Honda. So another note though, if you look in the community, you will also see that there's some other spaces dedicated to other OEMs like Ford, GM, FCA, which is usually more the Chrysler group, Toyota and BMW, and then I've noticed recently we've added 2 more groups for PACCAR and John Deere. But again, just quick plug, great place to go to share questions, issues, challenges specific around supplying to an OEM. So with that said, let's talk a little bit about what has changed, any specific updates what we're doing in support for Honda in the last year since our last conference last year. So the good news is there's not a whole lot of changes, which is nice. It's one of the few OEMs that seems to be staying pretty consistent and current. But there was in April of last year, so since our conference, a change to the Honda container label. So we actually have, there's 4 labels, but actually 2 different formats. There's a Honda 2020 and a Honda 2020 with pack. Those would represent, from the Plex side, labels that we have built to the latest standards. They are out there and they are current. So that was something we released, I believe, right around the April 2020 deadline to be compliant, maybe even shortly after, but those are available, and obviously would encourage us to look and validate that we are using those latest labels. Now, with that said, you'll see the second bullet point there. I did do a quick little search, and it looks like there's roughly about 250 labels out there with Honda in the name. So certainly we can use a label designer to make our own labels. It does make it a little confusing, and it's you know, if you're a new implementation or maybe Honda's new business for you, or you're trying to find the latest, most current two-spec labels amongst the 250 labels, it's sometimes difficult to sort through and determine which one that is. So when we publish any new labels per the design spec, we will make sure to post that out into those community spaces to help provide a little clarity. Additionally, if you look closely, there's some other statuses on labels that will kind of help you understand, is it current, is it old? You'll see obviously an active status, which should be current, but I know a lot of the community generated labels as well get, or some of the ones that we may make per request for specific customers, they're active and they don't necessarily, when we make new versions of ones for particular customers, we don't necessarily retire the old because it might be still active for some customers. But as we get better with the introduction of new, when Plex gets introduce new labels, we'll start getting better in using the statuses of retirement evaluation and obsolete replaced. So they're both, I just want to clarify, they're both still usable, but note if you see a label in that status, it is most likely an older version and there's something more current than that. All right, so that's it with regards to new capabilities for Honda. Over the next year, there is one additional change that is under consideration. We are looking at it in product management. We are trying to determine where in the schedule we'll be able to deliver it, but it's around communicating a revision change back to Honda via EDI, which is one of the requirements. They actually have a field in the ASN that notifies them that in future shipments, a new revision will be coming. And I guess I don't know the details, but I guess it's even internally within Honda, there's generally timing confusions around engineering version changes and actually when you will start shipping those. So there is a way to accomplish it today. I think we have to do some, I'll say, unnatural or interesting things within the ASN where that's a requirement. But we are looking to add a new field to the customer part form specific to this purpose. So it's the actual final field name may be next revision number. We haven't settled on that yet, but it's most likely going to be that. There will be settings to control the display of this because we don't necessarily want to display that on our customer part form if we're not doing business with Honda. And then whatever we put in that field will actually be grabbed and put into the ASN in the correct location and be sent on the ASN to Honda, giving them the notification that a new revision is coming shortly. We're also going to make that field available for labels. I don't know at the moment if there's a specific requirement to include that information on a label, but at some point there might be in the future. This process that Honda has, my understanding, is not completely unique, that there is periodically other OEMs or even other customers that are maybe not an OEM where that's a requirement. So this field should be able to be used, and if we have label requirements for this new revision field, it'll be available for labels in the label designer. So updates on this. Certainly there is an exchange topic for this need out there. Certainly if you look for, I believe it's the next, I think it's actually even called next revision. If you put that in the search, you will find the exchange item. We will also be updating and maybe inquiring any questions through that Honda supplier users group area of the community. So Updates will be posted there if you're interested in and looking forward to this capability. All right. So what else is going on in supply chain management at Plex? A lot. There's a lot of activities going on. However, there's some specific ones, some investments we've made that I want to highlight out that we've done since last year's conference. And I'll even talk about what's coming up here in 2021. So at a high level, I guess before I get to a high level of those, I want to remind everybody, you can find these major roadmap updates and releases in the community if you go to the release center, right? So if you want to look at past product announcements, a lot of our bigger investments we release in the quarterly release cycle. So most recently we had the winter 2021 release, which had several items in there. If you wanted to see the details of those or even past quarterly releases, you can find that in the release center. And this is also the location, if you see the column there on the left, it says upcoming product changes. This is where we will publish and post our roadmaps, right? So I believe if you go there, you can also find our past roadmaps, but you also find our latest roadmap there. And I know in a lot of our product advisory groups and even, well, primarily from our product advisory group meetings, you know, a lot of folks either don't know that area exists or that it's there and they don't check it. So please take a look for there. So let's take a look at what we've done over the last year. So the first one I want to talk about is sequencing. Sequencing is a capability that is driven generally by the automotive OEMs. And in Plex, we've historically had the ability, over the last year and a half, we've developed the capability of doing, I'll say, a pack to sequence fulfillment with inside of Plex, right? So taking in the broadcast for certain OEMs and processing it and actually setting up racks and kits and packing racks and kits to ship to a sequence to customers. Where we still struggle a little bit is where it's in a build the sequence environment where the sequencing broadcast is actually used to pass directly to the assembly line and broadcast what to build next. We've got a couple partners out there that actually provide that capability. And what we have invested in over the last 6 months is a suite of APIs that allow us to easily integrate back and forth information to the sequence solution and back to Plex in the form of racks and kits and inventory changes so that Plex is still a system of record for inventory and shipments, and also the ability to track the racks and kits that were built on the line using the sequencing tool. So before I go any further, I've got a quick poll. What I'm trying to understand yet is you know, how many customers do we have out there who are doing sequencing today, and probably have some other way of addressing it. So if I get the quick poll. Is the poll out there, Kathleen?
Yeah, it should be. I can see it. So.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, that's okay. There we go. So it looks like 73% said no, that they are not actively doing sequencing with an OEM or other customer, but 27% said yes.
Okay, awesome. So at 27%, we may want to talk later. You may want to inquire about our newest capabilities around sequencing to see if there is something we can do today that we were not able to offer in years past to support that. All right, a couple other items here. So I have recent in the recent area. So I've got scheduled document delivery. which is a new capability right now that actually we can set up schedules for documents to be distributed out via email. I know right now it's supported in the area of customer AR invoices and some customer statements. I think in the future, the plan is obviously to take that even further into purchase order distribution. So that's a neat new capability. In our demand caster product, which is our sales and operations planning, and actually our that capabilities is starting to replace what typically we've been using as MRP and PRP. We've added multi-out support for demand caster. We've also added a dynamic multi-out support within the some of the scheduling tools in Plex as well. So those are, if multi-outs are critical for us, or even dynamic multi-outs, there's some big advancements in that in those places. And again, another feature we've added in the demand caster is advanced planning budgets. So those are some of the big investments we've made over the last year, in addition to countless smaller individual features and functions throughout the rest of the supply chain management tools. Looking forward, so 2021 is going to be a big, and I'll call it interesting year, because there are several capabilities that, I've been with Plex for 15 years, and I've probably heard of all of these for 14 of those 15 years, and it's always a humble and a lot of conversation, overwhelming projects that just get pushed out, and we do what we can in a short time frame to support this. But in 2021, we are going to be addressing a couple of big capabilities that will be helpful, we believe, to all of our customers in multiple industries and product lines. So the first one here being BOM and routing versions, right? So the concept of having multiple routings for individual part and BOM configurations. The other one here, advanced unit of measures and conversions. Certainly, we have supported unit of measure and conversions throughout different places in Plex, but it's spotty, and how it's resolved can vary significantly, and it's certainly not propagated throughout the system. So we will be tackling that in 2021. And then the other one here is transfer orders and distribution. So this is the planning between buildings. So if you have multiple buildings and you need to plan, you're actually planning shipments between maybe the manufacturing facility and warehouses. I know scheduling and planning and transfer orders themselves has always been a challenge, so that's something else we're looking at tackling in 2021. And then last here is you see I have a different color here. It's not so much a product feature, but it's more of an initiative within the supply chain management team that we are trying to build stronger or just direct relationships with some of the OEMs, with the intention of trying to get out ahead of changes to try to help alleviate some of the changes that they push on you. If we have insight and understanding of it and some heads up, that we can actually start evaluating those capabilities in advance. Honda is an example of an OEM who's absolutely wonderful, and we engage with regularly, and they make an effort to do so, not only obviously with their suppliers, but with their suppliers' systems support folks. So they're definitely way ahead of the other OEMs in that capability, but we're hoping we can build that type of relationship with the others to help the overall community keeping up, so to speak. Okay, so last thing I want to do here is, this was upon request. We came in some questions around best practice, and if I'm going to be shipping to Honda, what is kind of a high level? What do I need to look at? How do I need to configure it to support them and their needs? So a couple things here. Obviously, label definition. We do need to set up a label definition on the customer address form. We'll look at those here in a second. They do use the full suite, so there is a Honda master unit label, there is a Honda mixed load, there is a Honda container label, and there is actually a Honda destination label, which is key because that is the quick receive label, which is very important when shipping to Honda. There are a few customer settings that I've included some of the key ones in a handout for this, so we're not going to go over the customer settings, but there are customer settings to evaluate and look at when shipping to Honda. That is one of the attachments. I think it says shipping to Honda document. That is not a formal document. That was something I pulled together with some, just based off a little bit of research, getting information both from the wiki, from the knowledge center, and also from just some documentation that our support team has. We do have to make sure our release types are set up correctly. There is additional container master unit setup that we need to ensure that we do to make sure we're passing the correct information back on the ASNs. And Honda does have a specific packing list, right? So, Plex does have a standard packing list or a shipper document if you're in Classic. And just note that Honda does have a specific format requested for the packing list when shipping to them. So the label setup, and I believe these are the latest. If I go out to the library, again, the master label, there is a Honda master label, there is a mixed load label, the destination label is the Honda quick receive ZPL, and then what I talked about, the container label, is the thing that has changed in the last year. And if you look for Honda 2020, you will see that there's a series of a couple labels out there that is the latest to their specifications for the individual containers. So from an overview perspective, best practice, Honda requires line side labeling. So what does that mean? That means when you are producing parts through the control panel, at that final operation, you will want to, if at all possible, in most cases, I think most of our customers are capable of doing this, you will actually print out the Honda container label right there at the control panel, as opposed to maybe some generic whip or finished good label. You'll actually want to print the Honda container label right there. Ideally, when shipping to Honda, usually you're shipping in pallets or standard kind of container sizes. So ideally, you are also building the master unit right there line side from the control panels. You're recording production, you're building the master unit. And again, that master unit should have the Honda master unit label. And that's where ideally, if you're doing that, the master unit label and the container label, you will not need to reprint or do anything special at the staging and shipping time, other than load the shipment. So talking on staging, just like every other customer, you will schedule shipments. If you are doing small lot shipping to Honda, you'll probably want to use the load sequence pick list, because that has some additional information that comes in off the releases that you will use to pack your containers in a specific, usually my understanding, small lot, you're going to be having probably a mixed master, and you will be building the master unit in that environment at the staging time. So using the load sequence pick list is probably the best practice there. Obviously, if you have not built master units at the control panel at production time, you will be building them here at the staging. And then you will stage the master unit directly to the appropriate shipper, ideally using mobile tools. And then last, once you have actually staged or loaded a shipper, you will then have the ability on the shipper form itself to be able to generate the destination label, which is key, because that is when you get your one-to-many quick receive labels. Now, I know there's a lot of questions of, what gets a quick receive label. In general, in principle, each master unit will get a quick receive label. I understand there are certainly, especially in the small lot environments, there's a chance that that's not always the case, a one-to-one relationship to master unit to quick receive label. But the actual logic when we generate the quick receive label, we actually look at the shipper and we determine, well, this shipper's got 5 master units on it. So Plex knows to generate the 5 unique quick receive labels with the information and the releases and the containers on each. So that is, if that is not happening correctly, if you are not getting the correct quick receive labels, that means there's probably something else in the staging process or that you might need to evaluate or look at your setup. And then the last thing is, after I got my quick receive labels, throw those in the master unit. I want to print the master packing list, which is available both in Classic and in the UX environment. And you have then a Honda compliant shipment. So again, master packing list is set up as a customer print document in UX and is enabled on the customer address where you can actually set the checkbox for master packing list on a customer address in Classic. Again, if there's any other questions here, if you're in Classic, there's a wiki out there that has some good information. And again, I can't encourage us enough to participate in the Honda supplier user group or any other OEM area to start asking questions and build out great articles.
Okay, great. We do have a few questions, and I do want to point out that document he mentioned is under the handouts section. Underneath the agenda, you should see that shipping to Honda document. Okay, so let's see. The first question, are the transfer orders and distribution intended to drive MRP, PRP for different buildings?
That's no. So the MRP and PRP are going to handle more of, again, those answer the question of what material do I need to buy, what do I need to plan production. Transfer orders are going to have probably its own, and I don't know if we're far enough along yet that we have all the details, but the transfer orders are going to have like its own requirements and planning interfaces, very similar to like PRP and MRP, where they add what do I need to produce, what do I need to buy. That interface for transfer order will, what do I need to transfer? Right. So I imagine it will have its own demand planning type interface.
Okay. Also, let's see, Peter mentioned that he needs to have the Tesla group added, and he has requested it. So I think maybe that's just like a info. He also had a very important question about what guitar brand and vintage is behind you.
Oh, well, the easy question is that's a BC Rich guitar, and then I have a few others. But don't be fooled, just because I have the guitars does not make me a guitarist. So, yep.
Go ahead.
No, that's as far as the Tesla label at this point, it's probably going to be delivered through services. Tesla is, there are certain OEMs that represent a large volume of our customer. We have to put the focus around those for being compliant. Then at some point, we would love to have the level of support like we have for Honda today for all OEMs. In a timely manner, but we're not at that point yet. That's part of the strategy of going forward. And so there are still some OEMs where when the request comes in, it will be sent towards our technical services team.
Okay. We have quite a few questions, so I don't think we're going to be able to get to all of these, so we'll have to follow up on some of them. You did a good job of running yourself out of time, but we will go ahead and I'll read this other one more. Could there be a flag on the customer record to make the next revision field visible rather than a setting?
Can there be well, so what we want to be able to do here is, well, possibly, certainly, we're still at the design phases for that. How we design it, we will definitely be going back to the community. So if you can look for the space in the exchange idea. We will be going back and forth on some questions and ideas in the exchange before we start writing code. So at this point, no suggestions are off limit. But yeah, that's a possibility.
Okay. And there are some other questions that we will just send to you, Chris, and maybe you can answer them, and then we can get them out to the attendees after the meeting today.